Hi, everybody. For those that don't know me, my name is Braden, and I'm the health fitness specialist here at the Ascent Fitness and Wellbeing Center. And today I'm going to be continuing our talk on framework. So now we're going to be just diving a little bit deeper into individual body parts and how framework is going to apply to those body parts. So today we're going to be talking about the foot, ankle, and knee. So starting with the foot and ankle, we're going to place a pretty high priority on the foot and ankle, just because it's a complex that's used every day, right? We're walking, running, even to a certain extent, like sitting, standing, we're using that foot and ankle. And some common dysfunctions that arise from the foot and ankle, or common dysfunctions of the foot and ankle typically arise from lack of movement, or previous injury, or can be a combination of both. And what these common dysfunctions can do is then cause compensations that are going to alter our movement patterns. So with that, our body is always going to take the path of least resistance. So let's say we injure a joint in the front of our foot. That's then going to cause us to have more of a heel strike as we're walking. And that's then going to alter our movement pattern as an example of that. And these alterations can then lead to some chronic pain and in some cases even future immobilization. So we want to just make sure that we're having the most desired movement pattern as possible as we're walking, as we're running, anything that involves foot and ankle. Then we talk about myofascial release. It's very good for the surrounding area, but mobility is going to take a little bit more of a priority with the foot and ankle, just given the complex structure of it. We want to just make sure that we're getting full range of motion through that joint, and then getting a good flow of blood and nutrients to the ligaments in the foot and ankle. So now talking about mobility, touching on what I touched on that last slide, we want to work through that full range of motion in order to get that flow of blood and nutrients to those joints, to those ligaments. And we really just want to make sure that as we're doing this, we're working through the natural motions of our foot and ankle. So what those are dorsiflexion, plantar flexion, inversion, and eversion. So all those motions can occur in just daily life. So as we're walking, we're always going to be dorsiflexing and plantar flexing. As we're walking on uneven surfaces, that's when we're going to be called to either invert or evert in order to just like keep walking on that unstable surface and not fall over. And as we learn to work through these desired movement patterns and also like tolerate some load in these movement patterns, that can then lead to prevention and recovery from injuries. And then we'll be covering all these mobility exercises at the end, along with exercises for the knee. So now talking about the knee, we're also going to hold a pretty high importance on this because the knee is also used in a lot of activities of daily living, right? Where anytime we're getting up from a sit or a stand, we're using that knee. We're extending, and we're flexing through that knee. And then some common dysfunctions that we see with the knee, so very similar to the foot and ankle, from lack of movement caused by previous injury, and then some inflammation, tendonitis can also occur. And when we're talking about the knee, these common dysfunctions typically arise from either underutilizing the knee, so not using anything at all, and that's going to lead to some immobilization, or it's overuse of the knee without proper mobilization, without proper just rest. And that is typically where we see cases of inflammation, which can then lead to injury. And then we're talking about myofascial release, important for the surrounding musculature, but we do want to focus a little bit more on mobility, just to make sure that they're getting a good stretch as well as like the proper flow of nutrients and blood to the tendons, to the ligaments of the knee. Awesome. So talking about those tendons and ligaments of the knee is very complex. We have 4 different ligaments in there, as well as our patellar tendon running right down the middle of the knee. So we want to make sure that we're working through full range of motion. Although the knee is primarily a joint that was used for stability, we need to place that emphasis on mobility and work through those full ranges of motion in order to have proper knee health. Then I'll be going over these exercises along with foot and ankle right now. So now starting with the foot and ankle, I'll be sitting for a majority of these. You can do these exercises while standing. Some require you to be on a knee. You can also do this while like using a wall for balance. Really whatever works best for you in the space that you have. But first movement that we're going to talk about are ankle waves. So with this, I'm going to start in a dorsiflex position. So my toes are pointed up. I'm then going to point my toes down, point that whole foot down, and then bring those toes up and the whole foot up. So there's 4 parts there. Bringing the toes down, whole foot down, toes up, whole foot up. And we're just repeating that motion. That's all we're doing for ankle waves. Our next motion that I got are ankle circles. So we're doing still sticking that leg out. I'll go ahead and start plantar flexion. We can start in plantar flexion or dorsiflexion. Really doesn't matter as long as we're just want to draw a circle with our foot. So just working through that full range of motion that our ankle has available, drawing circles clockwise and counterclockwise through that ankle. Next movement that I got are ankle pulls. So this is something that we will need to be standing for. But you can do it sitting. It's just a little bit difficult to do it sitting. But what I'll be doing is tucking my foot into the ground with my toes are being tucked down onto the ground. And what I'll be doing is kind of squatting down into this motion and just pulling right along the front of my ankle here. So I'll be going straight down, and then I'll go ahead and point my foot out and go down, and then I'll point my foot in and go down again. So working through those 3 different angles, just pulling that anterior side, that front side of my ankle here. Awesome. Next movement I got are ankle tilts. So with ankle tilts, I could also be standing. I could be sitting here. Better to be standing because ideally we want to put a little bit of load onto our ankle, and that's just going to increase or decrease the difficulty of this drill. So what I'll be doing is out of a split stance here, I'm going to be inverting my ankle and then bring it back to center. So be inverting as much as I can, and as I invert, to make this look more difficult, I can add more body weight, which is going to increase that load and demand on that ankle. So just increasing the demand that's placed there, and that's going to help me with just future cases of, say I'm hiking and I step on uneven surface, because my body is able to recognize and tolerate that range of motion and tolerate that load, I'm less susceptible to injury, just because I have those neural pathways that are going to recognize that pattern, recognize that load, and be okay with it. Just as simple as that. Then we're going to our next exercise. This one's actually going to be for the foot, ankle, and knee. So we're checking a lot of boxes with this one here. We're going to be normally best going up against the wall just to use that as support. I'll be using the chair in this case. But I'm going to be half kneeling. And what I'll be doing is bringing my knee over my toe while trying to keep my heel in contact with the ground. So leaning that knee over my toe, trying to keep that heel in contact with the ground. I'll be going directly over my toe, then out over my pinky toe, then out inside of my big toe. So I'll show that again. I'm going out over the front directly, out over my pinky toe, and then out inside of my big toe. Just working through those 3 different angles. Really getting a good stretch of our patellar tendon as well as our Achilles tendon. So next we got 2 more exercises for the knee. First one are going to be knee circles. So I'll get into that split stance again. And what are we doing here is with my front knee, I'm essentially just drawing a circle with my knee, kind of similar to those ankle circles, drawing a circle with my knee, working through as much range of motion as I got. Next exercise that I have are knee extensions. So I'll be doing, again, out of that split stance, now focusing on that back leg. I'm going to be going from this part where I'm relatively flexed into full knee extension. Relatively flexed into full knee extension. Now extending all the way, I feel a nice little pull through the back of my knee. How I can increase the difficulty of that is if I have a resistance band. I can attach that to a rack, to a pole, really whatever we have to mount that band to, and wrap it around the back of my knee. And then I just have a little more resistance with that extension, so I can just strengthen the knee a little more. But that's all I got for the foot, ankle, and knee. I hope this was helpful, and I will see you next time.